In my opinion, socialism is on the rise in America. Why do I say that? Well, a recent poll shows 4 in 10 of people 30 and under have a favorable view of socialism. Peter Morici joins us now. Now, I should say that he is the tenured business professor at the University of Maryland. You teach youngsters. What are you teaching them? I mean, youngsters do feel this way. They're supporters of Bernie Sanders. What are you inculcating our youngsters with, Morici?
Well, I'm not doing it. Maybe my colleagues are, but I'm trying very hard to instill in my young people, you know, the notion that markets are good and that capitalism is great and go out there and start a business and contribute to America. They really don't want socialism. What they want is democratic socialism, you know, income redistribution. The notion that everybody over $200,000 should be taxed at 75%. Basically, your typical Democratic Hill staffer. That's who they want to be like. You know, they want to basically take Stewart's money away and give it to someone else there operating on the set, you know?
Well, that's
what they want to do.
That's it. Look, I mean, young people are always going to be idealistic, you know. They're always... I was idealistic many, many years ago. You know,
I was for McGovern. I worked for McGovern, you know. I mean, you know, but then again...
So what changed you? What changed? What will change these youngsters who now speak favorably of socialism? What changes them?
Well, they go out and have to earn a living, and they have to operate in the marketplace, and they see what it's like to have the regulatory state frustrate them. They want to buy a house, and all of a sudden, they, you know, like my son is settled in New York City. He's a young lawyer, and the government's taking away all kinds of taxes. You know, that changes your mind fast because you start to ask a basic question. How much am I getting for my taxes, and what are my taxes going to support? And like right now, all these people are going to drop off Obamacare. You know, a lot of them are falling out of Medicaid. They're basically 35-year-old guys who don't work, aren't willing to look for work, sit around at home all day, watch ESPN, sponge off their girlfriends, and get food stamps and Medicaid. You know, I have no trouble having them fall off the rolls and not having health insurance. That might, you know, inspire them to get a job if it wasn't for the fact that Social Security is giving out a lot of bogus disabilities these days. But you start to become aware of those things, and then you change your mind, unless you live in New York City and you vote for Bellagio.
Okay, hold on a second, Peter. I've got to digress to one other quick thing. I want to talk about the...
Who is a socialist?
I heard all of that. I've just got to digress for a second to the situation in socialist Venezuela. Hardly a utopia. Give me the latest, because it's fallen to pieces.
Yeah, it's in collapse. 70% of the people now in poverty. And what we're seeing is Venezuela, what was an exodus, now a stampede in the number of refugees coming to this country. It's up 6 times versus what it was in 2014, the number of people fleeing Venezuela. So it's criminal what's going on in Venezuela. You know, Bernie Sanders has yet to weigh in about it. You know, they'll argue, you know, oil price collapse. Well, Canada has major oil reserves, the top 3 in the world, and that economy is not in collapse. This is socialism destroying an oil-rich country. Again, waiting to hear Bernie Sanders or Sean Penn or the others to weigh in on socialism collapsing the Venezuelan economy.
Does Peter Kiernan have any comment on socialism in Venezuela?
Well, in Venezuela I do, because they have enough oil to embarrass the Saudis. And the fact that you would take that oil-rich nation with oil at $100 a barrel and not have enough money to feed your kids, to staff your hospitals, to basically make the organism run, tells me that they have run amok with the money.
Okay, got it. I want to go back to Peter Morici because I want to talk about the Federal Reserve. We've got interest rates rising. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 2.60, and tomorrow we get the interest rate decision from the Federal Reserve. Where are we going with this? Is it 3 rate increases this year or 4, Peter? What is it?
I think it's no more than 3, especially if Donald doesn't get a tax cut done by August. A lot of this euphoria in the markets and a lot of these inflationary pressures will abate if he does not get his tax cut. Because after all, oil prices are falling. A lot of the inflation we're getting right now is not just the price of gasoline last year rising, but also now higher oil prices filtering through the core inflation elements. You know, things like nurseries, flowers, things like that are influenced by the price of gasoline. Already oil prices are falling back because of increased drilling activities, which has gone up very steadily since May in the United States. So my feeling is that this is a temporal surge of inflation, and unless he gets something else to boost demand, like a tax cut in place, I don't see the situation being so threatening that she would go to 4. Unfortunately, though, she's a Democrat, and the place is full of Democrats. And let's face it, They did Obama a big favor. They enabled his socialism, if you will, by keeping rates arbitrarily low and letting people borrow money even though he was taxing them heavily. And now they're not so sympathetic to Mr. Trump. I think they would like to see a regime change in 3 years, and that's how they look at it. That's the mantra on the left. And let's face it, you know, we have a lot of people on the left until Mr. Trump gets some nominees in there. Unfortunately for him, is he hasn't met an economist he likes to put there. Not even two, maybe. So we're going to get them from places like Goldman Sachs, and I don't know that he's going to get people that are as much sympathetic to him as he likes, given that.
All right, Peter, we hear you. Go back and teach some capitalism to those youngsters in your classroom. Yeah, get out there and do it.